We are talking about the Canadian zombie horror movie DEADSIGHT. This one is directed by Jesse Thomascook, who previously directed Hexecutioners, which I quite enjoyed actually, Septic Man, along with a few other kind of titles. And this one stars Liv Collins, not to be confused with Lily Collins, who also co-wrote this movie with Kevin Revie, and it also stars Adam Siebold. So the story here, we have two unlikely people. We've got this guy who has been kind of temporarily blinded by the looks of it, and he's been transported in this kind of ambulance where he is handcuffed, where he appears to be maybe potentially a criminal, and he kind of just ends up kind of waking up, Walking Dead style, blinded in the kind of the middle of the zombie apocalypse. Along the way, he meets this kind of very young police officer, female police officer, who is heavily pregnant, and the two of them have to kind of codepend on each other in a kind of initially kind of unlikely partnership, because they're really both somewhat incapacitated in this kind of zombie apocalypse and kind of traverse the landscape in hopes of finding safety. So that is your basic plot synopsis. So let's talk about what works first of all with DEADSIGHT. The thing that stood out for me the most, which I can give the most praise for this movie, is I actually thought the acting was very, very good from both our main protagonists. The guy, Adam Siebold, who plays our blind kind of main character, I really got this sense this character was blind. I thought he did a great job of selling it. I completely bought the fact that he was kind of blind and kind of was completely unaware of his surroundings. And this, of course, really adds to the kind of the tension in the film. There's a few scenes where he's, you know, in a house, for example, and there's kind of zombies kind of coming through, and he's not only trying to escape them, but he's doing this blind. So that was also pretty good. And the same thing with Liv Collins' character, who is, you know, heavily pregnant, very young kind of police officer, somewhat kind of naive, you get the impression, and you just feel just massively overwhelmed, and you know, just trying to kind of put a brave face on. And I actually thought these characters just seem really real, and I'm a big fan, I'm a big believer of having believable characters in kind of films. And I thought the movie started off very well, because it starts you off with this guy basically waking up blind, not knowing what the hell is going on. So you're kind of smack bang in the middle of it, but you grasp what is going on. The movie doesn't, I feel, leave you kind of like wondering what the hell has happened. I think it does a good job of not spoon feeding you, but also kind of getting you straight into kind of the action. I thought it was absolutely kind of fantastic. The zombie makeup, I've got to say, is pretty good. They are kind of somewhat of your kind of, not exactly fast-moving zombies, but maybe a little bit quicker than your average shufflers, shall we say. But I actually thought that there's some decent kind of practical makeup on display here that I thought that was pretty good. There's some kind of quite fun set pieces. There's never kind of like hordes of zombies on display here. But we do have a variety of locales, and I thought that was good, because obviously it kind of, you know, gives you kind of some kind of variation in the kind of landscape. I thought the directing was pretty tight, it's well paced. I thought they did a great job kind of lighting. There's this kind of scene in this kind of like, looks like a kind of some type of factory or something towards the end. It's kind of all got these red lights, and it looks very kind of ominous because of that. So what doesn't work for me? Okay, one small little nitpick. There's a few scenes where they use a shotgun in this movie, and then the zombie kind of heads explode, and it is really OTT CGI kind of like blood and stuff. Maybe a small factor, because we're talking, you know, 5 seconds of screen time, but it's just a little bit distracting. But here's my main critique with this movie, is I feel it kind of somewhat throws logic out the window in quite a few areas. So let me give you some examples. There is multiple times, not once, and maybe not even twice, multiple times where we have a character get hold of a weapon, and then once they have finished using it, they've hit someone with it, they just leave the weapon and then are walking around unarmed. It's just very, very silly, and kind of takes away from the somewhat believable acting that we have from our actors. And there's a scene, for example, similar to that, where our female police officer is tries to go off to get help, and she's got a gun where she tells us that she doesn't have many bullets. Yet there is another gun where in this house where this guy has committed suicide that she does not take. Now she picks it up later on, but I still would have thought you would have had the sense to have taken that at that time. for example. And that's not only that. So there's illogical decisions made by the actual characters, but I feel the story itself is somewhat illogical. Because neither of our protagonists seem to realise that there is a zombie apocalypse happening. They both seem to be quite surprised about what it is, so it's news to them. But I've got to say, the world that this movie exists in seems like this zombie apocalypse has been going for a while. And this is evidenced by when we get into this first abandoned house. There's a couple of zombies, and there's a guy who's obviously committed suicide in the kind of like the bar because he's not going to be turned into a zombie. So it seems like this has kind of been going on for quite a long time. Also, there's a hell of a lot of zombies in a kind of like, you know, in a big state of decay. So it strikes me this hasn't just happened. And the other thing, again, going to the illogical thing, we meet a kind of a third kind of character. This guy who is human, but he dies and turns into a zombie. And yet, when he turns into a zombie, his kind of he seems to have decomposed almost immediately. You know, he has this kind of like this kind of jaw, more skeletal kind of jaw sticking out, what he didn't have like literally 10 seconds ago when he was alive. So again, this movie is just a little bit fraught with some kind of illogical issues. I just feel I kind of like, yeah, let's kind of gloss over that. So that it kind of bothered me a little bit. So it ultimately becomes a fun movie that is well acted, but not particularly kind of compelling, because it just seems a little silly at times and a little bit thoughtless, and kind of like just typical kind of like movie logic where things don't make sense because they need the plot to go in a certain direction. So overall, I'd say this is an enjoyable film. Certainly, you know, a well made on a technical level, and well acted, which scores big points of me, and very, very likeable characters, but bogged down by some dumb decisions, unfortunately. So unfortunately, some poor writing. So there you go. That is my thoughts on this movie. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.